Let's begin. So, tonight is more of a practice than a talk, to be honest with you, because it's a very short, sort of simple practice. But I'll explain a little bit as we're talking about the practice. So, tonight we're doing a practice of meditation through rhythmic breathing, which is number 2 in our little meditation chamber course we have here. Often we read it out, but it's quite a simple sort of a practice tonight. We're just using the path of breathing in order to relax the mind and hopefully receive some level of, some of us is illumination. But let me explain what that means. You know, illumination occurs when sparks of the Kundalini arise from the coccyx and go up into the brain. In fact, some people get really lost and they think that they've awakened the Kundalini because they experience something like this, even though it's actually something quite normal. Yeah, I think you have someone like that in your class, yeah? So, where someone has an experience, for instance, pardon?
You were talking about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So you may experience, some fantastic illumination for a moment. You may feel like a complete state of happiness for some time, but to then think that state of being is permanent, well, that's a bit silly. And unfortunately, it's really common though, because people will have a little experience like that. They'll reach this sort of depth of meditation once and then think that they're illuminated permanently as opposed to receiving illumination. Now, what's the sort of factor? There's like a really obvious factor that, that you sort of pin that up again, that you show that up again. So you understand what I mean? What's the obvious, what's the obvious thing there? You know what I mean?
The psychological condition.
Yes, the psychological condition of the person. So this happens a lot. A person will do a nice practice like we're going to do tonight and will actually succeed in that practice and will reach some sort of illumination and they'll maybe realize something about themselves or see themselves as like a drop within the great ocean of life or experience themselves outside the mind or just experience a really deep level of silence in the mind. And that will cause an illumination of the essence and there'll be a great joy, a spark of the Kundalini will rise up into the brain, the person will feel some happiness. And then they'll go, all right, I'm enlightened. That's it. I'm done. And this is a kind of problematic conditioning because what you should do is then, look at your life and go, okay, I'm enlightened, but, still a bit of a mess, still having problems at work. I'm still sort of easily agitated by simple things in life. I'm having problems here, there, and everywhere. And then go, okay, what I actually need to do is continue on this path of illumination. But unfortunately, a lot of people stop there and they go, that's it, I'm illuminated. And they start making Instagram videos about being illuminated and they share them around, tell everyone that they're super illuminated and maybe they do a tech startup or something. Or maybe they just, sorry?
Start their own group.
Yeah. Usually they haven't got enough for that. They usually don't start their own group, Kai, because the reality is you've done nothing and you have no impetus. So you just go to other people's groups and you tell them that you're enlightened. That's what you do. You don't start your own group. Because if you were to start your own group, that would be a lot of effort. Yeah. And my father told a guy that once. A guy was coming to him and telling him that he had all these fantastic capacities and powers.
Is this personal?
That's one of. This is a different guy. And he kept carrying on and he kept interrupting my father in class. And then eventually my father just said, look, stop talking. And the guy kept going. And the guy said, no, I've listened to you talk. Now you have to listen to me. And my dad said, that's not true. I said, yeah, I came here and I've listened to you. Now you listen to me. And my father said, no. He said, what you need to do is go and print out a whole bunch of advertising, disperse it across the city. You know what I mean? Spend time, book a hall, pay for a hall, organize a lecture, spend your time, maybe spend a few years on a missionaries course and learn to study and everything. And then you can put on this talk and I can come and then I can decide whether or not I actually want to listen to you. Trying to point out the fact that, we sort of feel entitled. So anyway, going ahead, as I said, we can reach some level of illumination, not the truth, but an experience of illumination and experience of truth. That's the goal of tonight's practice. So we're going to be using the rhythmic breathing to achieve that. So the practice goes like this. We relax our whole body. In fact, I'll read out how Samael says. Relax your whole body well. Let no muscle or any part of the body remain in tension so that the body may be completely loose and comfortable. Now close your eyes and move your mind away from all external thoughts. That's step 1. Step 2. Now let's begin with an inhalation and exhalation of air, counting from 1 to 10 this manner. In 1, out 2. In 3, out 4. In 5, out 6. In 7, out 8. In 9, out 10. After counting to 10, we repeat the same exercise. So I've written that here, in, out, like that. This is repeated a total of 3 times. To inhale is to breathe in, to absorb the air, to exhale is to expel the air once again. In the inhalation, we have to fully fill our lungs with air, and the air is retained until we count the corresponding number, and then we exhale it totally. So we breathe in as much as we can. 1. 2. You see there's a pause. Now we're going to go more into this next week where we actually talk about complete breathing and all about filling the lungs with air. But basically, we need to have that little pause. That makes it a pranic breath as opposed to just normal, regular, everyday breathing. So we have a little pause, and so we're not counting like that. I'm not going 1, 2. Yeah, we breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're creating a pause. We're also creating a rhythm, yeah? We're also creating a rhythm, and we're breathing in as deeply as we can comfortably do so. Okay, after having completed the above exercise, we repeat the inhalation and exhalation, but this time without counting. So we just get used. So now we have that rhythm. We now do it without the counting. So we're still doing our breathing in and out, but we're no longer counting every single breath. We're now just moving with that rhythm that we've created. Okay, having finished the second exercise, we go to the third, which consists of totally forgetting the breathing, trying not to breathe, that is, breathing very little, barely what's needed, almost to not suffocate. Each one of these exercises should last approximately 5 minutes. So we're looking at about a 45-minute practice if we do it right. So again, we're taking in here a lot of air, and then all of this air and prana saturates our system, and so then when we forget the breathing, we're able to then move to a point of almost not breathing at all. What this is actually doing is this is sort of going through that. We got asana, pranayama, pratyahara, just like we talked about last week. Week before last, yeah? Like that, boom, boom, boom. Okay, next, then we continue the fourth exercise with the imagination. Now we try to see the internal organs of our physical body, such as the heart, the liver, the spleen, and the kidneys. So now we're visualizing the physical body. So we start by visualizing our physical body, and what we're doing is we're taking this sort of concentration that we've created here, and we're now moving it into our body. And so what we're going to be doing tonight, and this is the next few steps, is we're going to be observing the first 4 internal, or first 4 bodies we have. Not just internal, the external body too. So we're going to be working with these. Like that. There are different practices. Some practices we go through all, and some practices we only just do a few. So just to go through it, we have a physical body, a vital body, an astral body, a mental body, a causal body, which we've talked about in previous lectures, is the seat of the soul when it's created, a body of consciousness, and a body of spirit. Now, these are I've drawn them here also on the Kabbalah, so we can get used to how they look on the Kabbalah. It's important on the Kabbalah because it shows the relationships. Like, for instance, you see, the physical world and physical body has a relationship with the vital, mental, and astral. Its relationship with the causal spirit and consciousness comes through the other side. The consciousness communicates through the will or through the astral, and then comes down towards us through the mental, etc. So that we can sort of begin to understand how this sort of whole system works. It's a little map or legend that helps us to understand the way the bodies work. Okay, so so when I talk about visualizing, Samael uses this specific term. He says using the imagination. Now, we're going to give another lecture in the future called Imagination and Fantasy, and it's very, very important. So there's a pretty strong difference between imagination and fantasy and gnosis. When we talk about imagination and fantasy, normally people sort of see those as the same thing. They say that, to fantasize about something or to be imagining things, we sort of see that as the same thing. Do you know what I mean? but it's not. In Gnosis, it's completely different. The imagination is the correct use of the Ajna chakra, like that. The Ajna, which we'll go into when we do the chakra course after this one. So the Ajna chakra, which is the third eye, yeah, the imagination is the correct use. So imagination is when something actually comes to us. Like, for instance, as an example, Nikola Tesla was famous for saying that he actually dreamed, or just things came, not just dreaming, but things just came to him. You know what I mean? And then he reverse engineered it. So he saw a device that could do something, and then he reverse engineered it. The same thing, I once, I don't know if it's 100% legitimate, but I remember hearing the same thing about Einstein, that he saw the E equals mc squared internally, and then actually worked his way backwards, meaning he saw the formula, which exists in nature, the formulas of everything, and then he actually worked backwards and actually understood it afterwards. And same thing with Tesla. So that's imagination, as opposed to fantasy, which is just using things in the mind and from this world. I always give the example, like most of the books of fiction that we read are just fantasy. They're not imaginative. There's no new characters. It's just all the same stuff. In fact, when you start reading, you sort of get used to it. It's like all the characters are, what do you call it? The beasts and the various characters you see just come from mythology. You know, in the fantasy stories that you read, it's all mythological characters, and they just rehash them. Like Harry Potter, such a good example, you know. All of the characters in Harry Potter, the wizards and wizardry and all that sort of stuff, is things that have existed in folklore for years. There's nothing really new in that. So it's not really imagination, it's a work of fantasy, meaning the mind. Now, fantasy goes a lot deeper because because of fantasy, a person can just live in a completely abstract reality from what's real. And this can be big. Like, most people live in fantasy. Do you know what I mean? In our society, we think that a person who lives via fantasy is someone who's insane, someone who's lost their mind. But the reality is, most people live in fantasy. In fact, I just opened an Instagram account for advertising purposes for our group here, and I was shocked at the level of fantasy on Instagram. It's insane. I've used Facebook, and that's messy, but not like Instagram. Instagram is polished and designed to create fantasies in the mind of the people looking at it. You're supposed to look at that, and then you're supposed to see yourself inside the person's life. And people spend all their time posting things online about creating a fantastical reality. It's not real. Yeah? And you watch it, and you think it's real. The mind thinks it's real. The mind sees the guy running around free or something. He says, yeah, live life free, you know, just go live life free. And he's just running around the rice fields like he doesn't care. But the reality is he's actually a multi-millionaire making money off of selling you a lie. Like, you can't just go run free. You have to work. It's a fantasy. But he breeds the fantasy into people's minds, you see, and so people accept the fantasy. So that's the other side of fantasy, when fantasy can really go awry. But when I'm just talking about imagination versus fantasy here, the imagination, for instance, can be used in meditation to actually go into the astral. You can actually use the imagination directed with the power of will, yeah? With the power of will, I'll write it on there. The power of will, our friend from Japan, yeah? You can use this, that's a bad joke, we have a friend. Yeah. But you can direct the imagination, and then you can actually imagine a place, or you can imagine something being built or growing, and you can actually enter into that. So if if using your imagination, and I mean not I mean like a real imagination, like it's coming to you and then it becomes real, becomes completely real. If you can do that, you can step into that reality in the astral and you actually go to that place. So the imagination is something quite powerful and quite profound. It can bring us images of the interior worlds through the mind. And the correct functioning of the mind is imagination. That's what the mind should do, but the mind doesn't. The mind works by projection and fantasy. So it's constantly projecting fantasy into the mind. You understand what I mean? So that's a whole nother lecture for a whole nother day, because we'll give that. It's a bit too much for this practice. But what I'm saying here is, so when I'm imagining, we're not just, we're trying to actually really see that thing. Not like, I have a very nice astral body. What's on your astral body? Like, I remember there was a famous retreat my father went to where a lady did Kali or Kundalini. So we were all sitting around for the retreat. She gave everybody little pictures of little pictures of a snake, and then she gave out pens to 40-year-old people like this, and then she said, "Color in your kundalini. What color is your kundalini? Is it beautiful?" I was like, mine's got lightning stripes because it goes fast. You know what I mean? But when I'm saying imagine your interior bodies, I'm not saying come up with your idea of how you want your interior bodies to look. I'm saying with the imagination, try to use, with directed willpower and the imagination, try to see what your interior body actually looks like. Do you understand? So I'm trying to see a reality and a truth here, not make something up. Just so we're clear, because that word in English is complicated, yeah? So with the imagination, I'm visualizing the vital body. So first I visualize the organs and my whole physical body. Then I visualize the vital body, which is the body that exists just around. So my physical body's like that. The vital body exists like that. It's not the aura, it's the etheric thing. It's about an inch out from our body. This energy exists right around us, and all of the energy the body contains within that. So, and these bodies that we have, they all sort of mesh together without getting mixed up. So all these bodies exist together within us, and they don't get mixed up. So you have the vital body, the astral body, mental body, causal body. They're all there, co-penetrating with each other, but they're not getting mixed up. Do you understand what I mean? They're not. Their fibers aren't mixed up together, even though they are woven together. So after we visualize the physical organs, we then start to visualize the vital body, which is blue in its color. Yeah. And again, so we visualize this body, spend a few minutes trying to see, and obviously we have some sleepiness here. Yeah, we're not trying to just, create an idea of what I think my vital body should look like. I am trying to, in a state of sleepiness, bring the image of my vital body as it actually is into my mind. Yeah. Next, we visualize, using the imagination, the astral body. The astral body is the same. All of these bodies look just like our body, but they're different. They're slightly more subtle. Like, for instance, the vital body looks like the mountains. In the distance, the mountains are far away. They go blue. Yeah, like that. They look like the etheric mountains far away. It's like that, a light blue body. The astral body is multicolored. Like, I remember Lobsang Rampa, if anyone's read The Third Eye by Lobsang Rampa. You guys read that book? That's a good book. You should read that book. It's fun. Your kids should read it. It's actually a really, really good book. It's very nicely written. It's about a boy Lama who grows up, he's a reincarnation, and he has to go to the West. It's lovely, lovely story. But there's a bit when his third eye first awakens, and he starts seeing the aura and the internal bodies of people, and he walks outside, and there's a monk like sweeping, and the monk's really angry, and he can see all the colors of the anger in the guy's body, in his astral body, like there, and the anger's like, he said there's a blood red demon outside the door, the red of the anger, the ego of anger in his astral body. And he goes, oh, because he's got these amazing faculties. And the same thing, then he goes and looks at his master, and the master has this beautiful yellow, but like a golden yellow, really, really clean, beautiful yellow, which is actually the color of the next body we can look at, with the mind, of the mental body. And so obviously the mental body that is full of skepticism, the mental body that is full of fantasies, the mental body that is really trapped in the world of the senses is going to be like a very muddy yellow. It's not going to be a nice yellow. It's going to be like that sort of dirty nuclear waste suit yellow. You know what I'm talking about?
Hazmat suit.
Yeah, hazmat suit. The ones you see, like the Chernobyl suits. They look a bit dirty and they're kind of muddy, and anyway, you know what I'm talking about. So that's what it's going to look like. Whereas the person who has the mental body created in the internal worlds, the person who's actually created the mental body properly through the process of alchemy, that mental body is going to be something really beautiful. Like the Tibetans, that's why they wear the yellow robe, where they have a yellow and then a red robe. The red represents the awakened fire of the alchemy, but the yellow is also the perfected mind. Yeah, it can represent the yellow of the alchemy. When you look a little more deeply, The Tibetans are incredibly strong on the culture of perfecting and dominating the mind. So the yellow has more to do with the mind, with them, you know. So, okay, so we visualize the astral body, which has many colors. You know, it's always changing colors with our emotions. And then we visualize the mental body, which is yellow. And now the last two parts of this are where we're sort of trying to now, after we've gone through this process of creating some concentration and trying to feel these different bodies, and we're trying to actually, as we said, we're trying to use the mind correctly here. We're trying to use the mind as an imaginative device with the power of the imagination to bring forth the images of the interior worlds to us. Yeah. Now that mind is more open, we're then going to do our observation practice. And this is actually very similar to the one that we do in most of our classes. Where are they? Now observe the thoughts that arrive at our mind. Study them, but without rejecting or condemning or identifying with them, just with the purpose of letting them disappear by themselves, like the birds that fly in space without leaving a trace. So I will mention here, so we're not rejecting or condemning or identifying. I'm letting those pass. I'm actually separating myself from the thought. There's a beautiful saying. I can't remember if it was Raphael Arape or if it comes from Samael or even Gurdjieff. I can't remember. Raphael Arape said it, and he really likes it, and he talks about it all the time. He said that the thinker is the thought. Yeah? The thinker is the thought. It's the thought that's thinking. I'm not thinking the thought. The thought's coming to me. So the thinker is the thought itself. And then we identify with the thought, and then we become the thinker. In other words, the ego. Yeah? You understand? So if I want to begin to actually clear the mind, I must learn non-identification. You cannot force the mind to silence. It's impossible. It's like trying to force like a toddler to silence. You know, you can grab them and then they bite you and they lick you. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. You can try and scare them and they just like, you know. You hit them and then it doesn't work, you know. They're not that simple. So the mind is infected with violence. The mind itself is extremely violent. Yeah, Krishnamurti wrote a beautiful book called Beyond Violence, where he talks about just how violent the mind is. And you know, you have to see the mind is violent. It's one concept against another. One thing's right, one thing's wrong. Yeah, and the mind itself is in a constant state of agitation. And if you see people who are extremely intellectually like driven, they're actually quite violent. You know what I mean? Look at the world leaders. They're all intellectual. And what are they doing? Let's go to war. Why? You don't go, you know what I mean? Why? And you think to yourself, like, if I think about myself, why would I go to war? Because someone was rude to me or something. I think emotionally, you know, I'm not psychopathic. So I'll think emotionally. I'll go, oh yeah, you know, Russia's being mean. So I'm gonna screw you, Russia. I'm gonna attack you so you understand. But then halfway I'll get there and be like, I can't be bothered attacking Russia. It's going to take ages and I'm tired. Let's just have peace. But these guys, they're intellectuals and they're just so violent in the way they do things. They start wars. They don't think about the millions of people dying. They just don't even seem to care. That's the mind. Yeah, it's the same mind. Have you seen what scientists do? Grafting things. They take animals and just put them through horrible experiments. This is the mind. The mind is so violent. Therefore, how can you quieten the mind with violence? It is the violence of the mind that makes it not quiet. It's one thought after another. You know, you try to sit down, the mind violently, it assaults you. You get home from work and you're like, mate, it's been a big day. And the mind's like, stress out. Look at this house. It's a mess. What's going on? You got class. You got all this stuff on. Why are you not depressed? You should be depressed.
This is too much.
Yeah, it's too much. The mind assaults you. It assaults you. You know, it assaults you with attacks. Barrages you. You know, it just comes at you, and it's so violent, you know. And so, as I was saying, yeah. Therefore, we can't actually beat that with violence. Yeah, we have to take the approach that Gandhi taught us beautifully, the approach of ahimsa. Yeah, the non-violent activity. And this is not non-identification. Yeah, it comes at you with this violence, and we don't. As what he said, rather than try and clash swords with a bigger sword, attack my opponent with a bigger sword, or nowadays with a bigger bomb. It's not funny, but it is kind of interesting. Like, you see the war at the moment between it's not really a war, but let's not go there. But Israel and Iran, it is a war, Israel and Iran, and they're just lobbing bombs at each other. You know what I mean? Part of me wants to be like, what happened to getting on horses and swords and like settling it like men? Instead it's like two guys sitting. It's like, we throw a bomb at you, and I'm gonna throw a bomb at you. I throw a bomb at you, and I throw one back. And it just keeps going. Absolutely ridiculous nonsense. Yeah. Don't you throw a bomb at me, I'll throw a bomb right back at you. Oh my gosh, I throw a bomb at you. It just keeps going. This is absolute nonsense, It's like, really, you just need to put the two of them on a sword, give them some armor, a couple of, swords, throw them in the desert, and just let them have it. Go at it. You know what I mean? But anyway, let's not go there. But so the point is, we're not trying to cross swords with a bigger sword or a bigger bomb. I remember when they were fighting, it's like, we're going to use our super bunker buster. You know what I mean? Super bunker buster. Have you seen the movie Top Gun? Yeah, we're going to use we're going to do a maneuver that you've probably seen in Top Gun. Do you remember that? That was so funny. I couldn't believe it. The news were literally saying, if you watched Top Gun recently, we're going to do the maneuver that you've seen in Top Gun. It's like, oh my God. I don't know how to tell you this, guys. I don't know how to tell you this. I don't know how to say this, America, but movies aren't real. Anyway, this is fantasy. Do you remember when George Bush was in power, and when they first went to war with when they first attacked the Middle East, and it was like, what's his name? What's that bald actor? Bruce Willis? Bruce Willis called up. I don't know how true this story is, because it's been so long now, you know what I mean? I'm probably wrong, but I heard a story that Bruce Willis called up George Bush and said that he'd like to go to war, like to support his country. But he's just an actor. Do you know what I mean? Like, and George Bush was all like, oh, come on there, Bruce. You got to be inspiring the people back at home with your movies. It's like, Bruce, mate, he was like 55 at the time or something. He's like, Bruce, calm down, mate. You're not actually a one-man army. You know what I mean? Like, in the movie, you're a one-man army, but in reality, you're just like this some bald guy. You know what I mean? Anyway, let's not go there. But so, what I'm trying to say is, you can't. Instead, we rust the sword of the opponent. We corrode the bombs. We rust the sword. We disarm the nukes. Yeah, by just completely and utterly letting it have its thing. Like, have you ever had a child that just completely loses the plot in front of you? Sorry, kids. Have you ever had a thing where the child is there just like, I've actually had adults do it in front of me, but let's not go there. In cafes, in public, I've just watched people have a complete, not a toddler tantrum, over the fact that we have some wrong milk or something, and there's a barista, and they're like, just watching, like, holy hell. So, but, there's like a moment where they're just completely losing the plot, and there's nothing you can do. You actually know that they've now reached insanity level of, they've spun themselves out completely. So you just sort of stand there and be like, okay, well, this is going to eventually finish. I'll just walk away. And so, there's sort of this moment where there's actually nothing you can do. You just have to observe and wait for this process to run itself through, you know what I mean? And so it doesn't matter how many times you go to them and you say, oh, can I get you a toy? It doesn't matter. They're completely past that. The toddler tantrum, Roisin, which is just like, no. You can't give her even the thing she wants. You can't give her the thing she wants anymore because she doesn't want it. She just, no. You know what I mean? That's it. You tried to help me button up my shirt, but I need to button up my shirt. And now you're letting me do it, but I don't care. So, like, that's what I mean. So you just let it go. This is the mind's like. So the thoughts come, and we don't reject them. Go, that's it. I'm having a quiet mind. We don't condemn them. Oh, bad thoughts. No, Mickey, don't think bad thoughts. It's time for meditation. You're not allowed to think anymore. Oh, don't think about your bank. Don't think about all the problems. Don't think about money. Don't think about things. Don't think naughty thoughts, about women. Yeah, don't think about anything, Nah. You actually just need to watch the thoughts. That's it. If a Gnostic, don't identify your thoughts. Well, that's an ego of pride in that thought. And that's another ego of envy, I think. And that's another ego of lust, I guess. Yeah. Just watch the thoughts. Watch them, yeah? That's all. You can work on the ego in a different practice. This is one about quietening the mind. Okay, so we watch the thoughts, and then, so observe the thoughts, don't identify with the thoughts, discard the thoughts. So when a thought comes in, we just need to see the emptiness of the thought, that's all. If it's a thought worrying about something at home, we go, well, okay, you have to talk to the mind. So, okay, mind, what are we going to do? We're going to get up and walk and go home right now? And the mind's like, we could. Like, we're not going to do that, mind. You know? Okay, mind, shut up. Like, that's enough. There's nothing else for you here. And the mind, okay. I'm not going to, either I get up now and I go home and check the oven or check the whatever, check the light that I left on, or I leave it, yeah? Or I leave it, and then that's it. Do you know what I mean? Like, what was that time? Was it all the way home to find the iron that turns the iron turns itself off or something? Was that you guys? you borrowed Ruby's iron, then you guys drove home to make sure the iron was off, and then the problem is Ruby's iron has an auto turn off. So
No, the neighbour broke in because we thought we left the iron on.
Ah, the neighbour broke in, that's right. The neighbour broke in to turn the iron off.
And then Ruby told me, it's turned itself off.
Yeah, Ruby's iron has an auto turn off feature if you leave it for like half an hour or something, whatever.
Not even that, like 5-10 minutes.
That's a fancy iron. So, yeah, okay, it's got features. Yeah, you can make you a sandwich. You never had a toasty? Well, you're like, everything's got to have features nowadays. You can't just have like a car anymore. It's got to open and close. You ever see that video of that guy getting locked in the back of his car? You got the auto close feature on your back door. And the guy knocks his head on the car, and then the auto close feature breaks and just gets sandwiched in. It's getting closed. The door's trying to close on him. And it's like, this could have all been solved if we just never put an auto close feature in cars because you don't need it. Like, you've got a hand. Anyway, let's not go there. We're off topic. So, once we're no longer identifying with the thoughts, then the last thing is silence. So Samael says, the total emptying of the mind, absolute stillness of the mind, total silence of mind. When the mind is still and in profound silence and completely empty, inner illumination, marvelous ecstasy comes. That's it. Obviously, this silence is the result of the rest of the practice being done correctly. You know what I mean? Now, just the last point I wanted to make about that. There's a wonderful thing. I can't remember. I think it was somebody was asking Samael over and over again, what is meditation? I'm pretty sure that's how this story is. Correct me if you remember, Kai, but someone used to harass Samael a lot about how to meditate, the best way to meditate over and over and over again. And then Samael said to him once, well, how to silence the mind? I think that's what this is. Yeah, I can't remember. And he said they kept asking Samael over and over again, how do you do it? And then Samael would give different answers. And then one day, finally, he was like, all right, here it is. He goes, here's a thought. Here's another thought. In between them is a space. That space is silence. Yeah? Oh, wait, so I can't write that way. In between that is silence. He said, increase the space. And that was it. Like, that's what he said. He said, increase. In other words, increase the space between thoughts. Yeah? You create silence in the absence of thought. Yeah, you can't create silence. Silence is what exists naturally when the thinking process is exhausted. I think that's from the Jules the Yellow Dragon. It's that when the thinking process is exhausted, silence naturally occurs. So that's why this process of just letting the thoughts go one after another, slowly the thoughts, like that gap will increase between thoughts. In the beginning, it's like there's one thought just right sandwiched after another. And then slowly the gap will increase, and then we will have silence in the absence and when the thought process is exhausted. That means you may go through a process when the thoughts kind of attack you almost, and it's like the mind goes a bit nuts for a few minutes because the thoughts are beginning to exhaust. That's why a lot of people, they start meditating and go, my mind goes more crazy when I meditate. Heaps of people tell me that. Oh, I wish I could meditate. If I sit down for, 2 minutes, my mind goes completely mad. And I'm like, that's because you need to learn to relax the mind. And that will stop. I'm like, oh, yeah, sure, mate. Yeah, I guess. It's not for me, eh? Yeah, I know. Okay. Okay? Do you have any questions before we do the practice? Quite a simple little practice tonight. Well, it's just like 9 steps. It's relatively complicated, but it's pretty easy. Happy? Good? Okay. Let's make a little circle here, and we'll do this practice.